I'm going to retire from boxing before I let boxing retire me.
That I'm not comfortable with. You know, I had a great career. You know, I've done some tremendous things in the sport of boxing. I made a lot of history. You know, what can I not be proud of if I walked away from the sport right now? You know, I don't have no regrets because everything that I did it my way. So if I was to walk away from the sport right now.
Terence "Bud" Crawford has officially retired from boxing. Following months of disputes, legal battles, and public disagreements with the WBC, the undefeated and undisputed pound-for-pound star has stepped away from the sport, closing the chapter on a career that cements his status as one of boxing's all-time greats.
Retire, Bud. Retire, Bud. It's over. You ain't got nothing else to prove. Let's go fishing, Bud. Let's go fishing, Bud. Retire. Yeah. It's over. I won.
It's finally over. The same fighter who conquered 3 weight classes, unified titles, and carried himself with quiet authority has stepped away from the sport, retired, stripped of his championship, and faced accusations of contract breaches while being called out by boxing legends. Crawford has said that the sport he devoted his life to, the one he gave everything for, has ultimately worn him down. But what really happened behind the scenes? What pushed one of the greatest fighters of his generation to lay down his gloves not in defeat, but in defiance? Here's the full story behind Terence Crawford's shocking exit, a tale of power, principle, and controversy that has sent shockwaves through the boxing world.
On terms, and I'm gonna feel good because everything that I did it my way.
Everything started with a shocking announcement. On December 3, 2025, the WBC officially stripped Terence "Bud" Crawford of his super middleweight world title, a move that sent waves of surprise through the boxing community. The decision came after Crawford reportedly refused to pay sanctioning fees for his last 2 fights, including his massive $50 million bout against Canelo Alvarez.
He never paid the sanction fees for that fight. His next fight was Canelo Alvarez. He fought for the WBC title as well as the other 3 organizations, and he won the WBC title and the undisputed. He became undisputed, and he did not pay the sanction fees for.
Just like that, the fighter who dominated the sport saw his crown taken away. His undisputed status vanished, his title revoked, and his relationship with the WBC left in ruins. But as dramatic as it seems, sources say this was not an unexpected or sudden collapse.
He did not comply with the rules. Then he moves up to super middle and makes the fight of the century, beats Canelo, makes $50 million or around that. The WBC absolutely is not going to charge 3% of such an amount. We made a very clear 0.6%, which is 300.
Behind the headlines, Crawford's frustration had been building for years, fueled by broken promises, politics, and a sport that often penalizes the very fighters who elevate it. He was no longer just battling opponents in the ring, he was taking on the system itself. Even before the WBC controversy erupted, Crawford was already embroiled in a courtroom battle, filing a lawsuit against one of boxing's most influential figures, promoter Bob Arum, and his company Top Rank. In the lawsuit, Crawford alleged breach of contract, fraud, and even racial bias, bringing the fight outside the ring and into the public eye.
To give a real quick snippet of what I just found out. So Terence "Bud" Crawford just filed a lawsuit against Top Rank and Bob Arum, claiming racism and bias against black fighters.
Top Rank had promised to arrange a unification fight with Errol Spence Jr., a matchup fans had long demanded, but the company failed to deliver. Crawford stated that in 2019, he had an agreement that if Arum did not make a good faith offer to Spence by the end of 2020, he would be compensated $900,000. That payment, he claims, was never made, leaving him sidelined from one of the biggest fights of his career. Meanwhile, Arum allegedly prioritized other fighters, and Crawford further accused him of making racist and discriminatory remarks that harmed the reputations of black boxers, including Crawford himself.
He's basically stating that none of the fighters want to speak up. They don't want to say anything.
Responded forcefully, dismissing the lawsuit as baseless and irresponsible, arguing that the claims were offensive and insisting his career had been built on promoting fighters from all backgrounds. He characterized the legal action as a harmful and unjustified move. And the public dispute marked a clear breaking point between promoter and fighter. Soon after, Crawford parted ways with Top Rank, choosing to go independent and pursue his career on his own terms. However, that sense of freedom was short-lived, as he quickly found himself facing another major setback when the WBC stripped him of his title. This time, Crawford chose not to stay quiet.
They ain't gonna tell me I ain't even apologize. Like, who the fuck you think I am? Boy, you better slap your fucking self and pan your ass shit.
In an 8-minute video that quickly went viral, Crawford unloaded his frustration on the WBC, dismissing their titles as symbolic prizes and accusing the organization of prioritizing money over fighters. His message was emotional and direct, reflecting years of built-up anger and disappointment. Crawford suggested that belts alone don't define greatness, arguing that real legitimacy is earned inside the ring, not through trophies handed out by organizations. That statement alone sent shockwaves throughout the boxing world and sparked intense debate among fans, fighters and analysts alike.
You, the WBC, and you got the fucking green belt, which don't mean fucking shit. Fucking real belt is the ring belt, which is free, motherfucker. What are you talking about? You want me to pay you more than the other sanction bodies because you feel like you better than them. How in the world all the sanction bodies agree to the same amount, but you sit your motherfucking ass up there and say that I need to apologize?
With some fans praising Crawford for speaking out against what they see as the hypocrisy of boxing's governing bodies, while others viewed it as an emotional outburst that risked damaging his legacy. Even Errol Spence Jr., Crawford's longtime rival, weighed in on the situation, adding another layer to the ongoing debate.
I mean, it makes sense, but I mean, I think he should have talked about it, before, because now he's talking about it when he don't need the WBC anymore. And he should have talked about it, way back when I said something, he should have spoke up and said something about it too. So I don't know, man. It is what it is.
Spence said the situation was understandable, but questioned the timing, suggesting Crawford was only speaking out now because he no longer needed the WBC, and that the message would have carried more weight earlier. Some listeners felt Crawford sounded resentful, while others believed he finally sounded unburdened. What was clear, however, was that he was no longer willing to operate under boxing's traditional rules. Soon after, voices from the next generation emerged, with rising star Keyshawn Davis openly stepping forward to defend Crawford.
Understand why we become champion, have to pay for a belt. Keep that shit.
Yeah.
Keep it. I'm not gonna work 14, 15 years for me to pay for something I worked for. When I went to the Olympics, did I pay for that damn medal? No.
Davis echoed a sentiment many fighters have quietly shared for years, questioning why champions are required to pay for belts they earn through competition. He argued that achievements should not come with a price tag, comparing it to winning an Olympic medal where no payment is demanded. Davis openly backed Crawford's stance, dismissing the idea that fighters should fund governing bodies after reaching the top. His comments resonated throughout the sport, calling attention to what he described as a deep contradiction, where athletes dedicate years to climbing the ranks only to be told they must pay for recognition they already earned in the ring.
Earned.
If I walk into this arena without this belt, is these people still gonna show up? Yes. So keep the belt. You're not gonna take my money. With all due respect, you know what I'm saying? I just feel like, so I agree with Terrence, you know what I'm saying? But I just don't agree with paying for belts. That's why, for all the sanctioning bodies, you know what I'm saying? And I told this to the one that I was under, the WBO. I told him, I said, I don't really believe in that. And he explained why. And I was like, okay, but I still don't agree with it. You know what I mean? So like, I'm always gonna be like for not paying for belts.
He voiced what many others were too hesitant to say, arguing that fans would still fill arenas regardless of whether a belt was on the line, so paying for it made little sense. Two younger fighters, Crawford wasn't abandoning the sport, he was taking a stand, confronting long-standing traditions and challenging boxing's most powerful institutions directly. However, the establishment was never going to accept that challenge quietly. WBC President Mauricio Suleiman responded in a measured and diplomatic manner, though the underlying tension was impossible to ignore.
$55,000 going to the Jose Suleiman Boxers Fund, which is to help former fighters in need. And it is just regrettable. Not even a thank you or I'm sorry, taking a different route, no response. I wish him the best. But this is not. The WBC is huge, it's great, it's about greatness, and I'm relieved.
12 Suleiman told reporters he had no interest in engaging in a public back and forth with Terence Crawford, saying the organization's priority has always been the fighters and wishing Crawford success both inside and outside the ring. He explained that sanctioning fees were not driven by greed, but were intended to support the Jose Suleiman Boxers Fund, which helps retired and financially struggling fighters. Despite that explanation, many fans remained unconvinced and continued to question the system. Veteran ring announcer Jimmy Lennon Jr. later weighed in as well, describing the situation as unfortunate and damaging, and noting that the public feud had taken an ugly turn for the sport.